going to move on to Dr. Joe DiBacco. Joe, I was happy to see that our four-year graduation rates for Valley students increased to 90%. This is 2 percentage points higher than the state, which is great. However, when I look at the data with a socioeconomic lens, students living in low income, the rate actually drops to 82% versus 95% for those living in high income. Joe, as you know, according to the 2017 Most Distressed Municipalities in Connecticut, both Ansonia and Derby, and I don't know if the audience knows this, are in the top 5 of the most distressed municipalities in the state of Connecticut. But each of our communities have a level of poverty. Can you explain what some of the living experiences that students from low-income households are experiencing that may affect academic achievement, such as transiency or chronic absenteeism, things like that?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge that I had to flip my notes over because David kept reading from them, just so everyone's aware. And I did not appreciate that, David, so because you might want to leave me something to say. I'm just being clear here. Don't want to sound repetitive, but looking at the experience, life experiences, I personalized it. I'm a father of a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-month-old. And I did the same factoring on how much it would cost for me as a family for child care here in Ansonia. And if you want to know some of the living experiences, education is the common denominator. By the common denominator, we bring housing, transportation, access to food, access to actually anything impacts our children. So if you want to understand living experience, why academic achievement has been impacted, if you're worried about when your next meal is going to come, if you're worrying about if you're going to move in the middle of the night, if you're worried if, when you go home, who is going to be there, and are they that loved one that you really want to be there? If your brain is in survival mode, it's really hard to be in achievement mode. You're really fighting. So oftentimes students actually look disinterested. They look as if they present with behaviors. But the actuality is it's actually more frustration because where's your next meal coming from? Are we going to move? Did daddy just lose his job? Do I have to go live with grandma? That level of instability creates, as David said, inside that book bag, there's a lot more than the books. We're dealing with things that students especially are dealing with issues that are not theirs. They're adult actions. So in access to transportation, they can't get to school. It's not a 6-year-old's fault for not getting to school, not getting up on time. It's the adults. But the other part is, how do they get to school? How do they get to their doctor's appointments? Do they go to their appointments? If you look at the health, which, Pat, you did not read off my paper, but what I will tell you is the rate of asthma and or students under 6 that have elevated blood levels due to lead poisoning. The asthma rates in Ansonia are higher than any other district according to the survey. Kids wake up tired, exhausted, inhalers, access. Those types of things prevent students from coming to school. And I could tell you, when you're not in school, you're not learning. So when kids are chronically absent, the other thing that we realized in Ansonia, just so you know about chronic absenteeism, we actually had these 13 early release days. And then on top of it, you would have one day, early release day before Thanksgiving, another one before Christmas. So that's 15 days. Well, as David said, when you don't have access to someone to watch your kid halfway through the day, you don't come to school those days. What we realized in Ansonia, those were 15 days kids missed school. You add another 3 during the year, then you hit your 10%. Now you're chronically absent. We weren't helping families. We actually were hurting them based on trying to get our teachers more professional development. But at the same time, once you realize that, you had to stop that because it put our families that were already strapped financially at such a disadvantage. And students are missing, if you look at 18 days, it's 20 days, and you're missing a month of school. How are you going to make that up? So when it comes to understanding the achievement and where students are, a lot of it's highly, highly dependent. Ansonia right now, our 211 calls for shelter are 3 times the valley average. This is something that we rely on TEAM and other local organizations to help our families out. This is something where if you don't have consistency, it really impacts student achievement. It really does. But stop copying my notes.
And here as well, when we say that Derby and Ansonia are in the, two most top disadvantaged municipalities, it just compounds those problems, because what kind of services are you looking for your families?
Well, first of all, one thing is, due to our high level of actually free reduced lunch, we are community eligible, where all our families are getting free breakfast and free lunch. At least that puts something. But the services that we are looking for, a lot of them are for mental health services, but also the services, if you look at the survey, 33% of our families know someone who has either abused or been exposed to opiate use. We have students that really need, and families that are going to need treatment. I mean, we also see, it's not something here, but we used to have the smoking cessation classes, but now I think some vaping things. But smoking is a tremendous issue, which Pat highlighted earlier. So these are the things that we're seeing as supports, but the supports come from, we need help with housing. And it's something that we worked with Team. Team is working very hard as well on looking at sustainable and affordable housing. Transportation, another huge piece. If our parents can't go to interviews, can't go to jobs, they're not getting their kids to school. So those are the types of supports we need from the community. And the other part is, our business partners have really stepped up to the table to help give our kids the opportunities if parents can't provide it. And it's one thing that it's great that we can rely on our businesses. And that's something that anecdotally is not something here in our index, but when it comes to asking business, people do want to help. Everyone in this room wants to help, and it's amazing when you do ask and when you are of such need, and people here in the Valley understand. And they genuinely, when we go to different either businesses or community agencies, Joe, what can we do? To me, it's unbelievably encouraging, and this just solidifies. This is something that affirms what we all know. It gives us the data, but it really helps people say, we know you're not coming to us, head in hand. You really don't have it. So it's something that they have acknowledged, and this solidifies it for us.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Joe.